From the pages of MikeHuckabee.com, where you're going to find all my columns and have them delivered right to your inbox by signing up for my free, that's right, it's a free newsletter. It's time to buckle in and take a look back at another week that was. An American patriot was exonerated, as President Trump predicted he would be. Charges against General Michael Flynn were dropped by the Justice Department, ending a multi-year campaign to destroy the reputation of a 33-year military veteran. In court documents filed on Thursday, the Justice Department said that after reviewing the newly disclosed information, it agreed with General Flynn's lawyers that his interview with the FBI should never have taken place because he had not had inappropriate interactions with Russians. The interview, the DOJ said, was conducted without any legitimate investigative basis. Jim Comey, unavailable for comment at the time of that embarrassing announcement. Well, as the pandemonium continues to upend American life and ripple through every inch of the economy, Americans are getting a taste of the rancid bat soup of globalism and a sense of what America Last policies really can do. Tens of millions of Americans now find themselves out of work through no fault of their own. Some jobs, pandemic or not, were given away like candy to foreign countries. Canada, for instance, whose massive lobbying efforts resulted in lifting tariffs on Canadian aluminum coming into our country. And what was the result? Well, in Washington state, 700 Americans who were manufacturing workers lost their job thanks to an unprecedented surge of aluminum from Canada. One member of Congress, in fact, it's the one who represents the very district in which those 700 workers lost their jobs, had actually worked with the Canadian government to lift the tariffs. Washington Congresswoman Suzanne Delbene, she called the tariffs disruptive. I mean, what could be more disruptive than Americans having their livelihoods taken away and sold up the river to Canada? You know, it makes one wonder whose country's Congress she works for and why anyone would trust America Last Democrats ever again. Well, Keith's got some great questions from you in just a moment. But first, if you're enjoying our content, you ought to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell below. Also, hit the like button because that makes your crazy liberal friends more likely to see all of this. And it's something to do with the YouTube algorithm. Just trust me on that. Now, let's see what's on your mind as we share some emails that you've sent to my2cents@tbn.tv. Keith, what have you got for us this week?
Well, let's hear first from Jerry from Fort Worth, Texas. He asked, a beauty salon operator opened up in Texas because she needed money to feed her kids, and a judge throws her in jail for a week. What in the world is going on?
Some crazy stuff going on, Jerry, and I'll tell you, thank goodness the Texas Supreme Court stepped in and released the hairstylist after only a couple of days. Now, remember, what the judge threw her in jail for was because she refused to say the magic words. Those words were, "I am selfish." What was she selfish about? The judge said she was being selfish because she opened her salon in order that her employees would be able to get a paycheck and feed their families. Be honest with you, I got to side with the hairstylist. It's not selfish to want to feed your family. It's not selfish to want to take care of your employees. What's selfish is to release 1,000 people from the Dallas jails, which they did for fear of coronavirus, and then put a hair salon owner in that very jail. That's not just selfish. That's just plain stupid. Okay, Keith.
Well, Leanne from Atlanta writes, what are your thoughts on the shooting death of Ahmaud Arbery, the young man who was out jogging and was fired on by two men in a truck who stopped? They said they were making a citizen's arrest, but used deadly force on a man running for fitness. This breaks my heart.
It breaks my heart, too. I think it breaks the heart of everyone. And in just the last couple of days, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation have arrested the two men who were involved, one of whom was a former police officer, and they have been charged with the murder of Mr. Arbery. And again, people are innocent until proven guilty, but I've seen the actual video of this, and it is disturbing, disgusting, and I'm so glad that law enforcement is going to at least hold these men accountable. Let's be real clear. Citizens arrest is not vigilante action where we just go and grab a gun and decide that we're going to be part-time policemen, deputizing ourselves and going out and chasing down people because we think, not know, but we think they might have committed a crime. Turns out this was an unarmed African-American man, and he had not committed the crime. He was simply out running. That is not a crime. But killing him, that is. And it appears these guys are going to be held accountable for it.
Well, Galen on Gmail is mad. Says, I heard you on Hannity this week. Had respect for you up until then. When you stepped on the good people of Michigan who are having their lives destroyed by this tyrannical governor, it was the last straw. They did protest peacefully the first time, remember? It then extended the illegal lockdown. We have the Second Amendment for a reason. I now wonder what side you stand on.
Well, that's a fair question, but Galen, I'm not sure if you understand my answer. What I said was that sometimes we have a right to do things, but it doesn't mean that we should do them. Let me use a scripture verse on you. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 23. Paul said that all things are lawful, but not all things are expedient. I think there's a lesson there. There are some things that I am able to do, but maybe I shouldn't do. The whole issue was whether or not people should show up to the state capitol, not to protest, but also to protest wearing semi-automatic rifles and clearly showing the most intimidating look they could. Do they have a right to do that? I'm not sure the Michigan law, but perhaps they do. But was that the best way to carry out their message of protest? My point to Hannity was, just because you have a right to do something doesn't mean that it's the best thing to do, because now the whole story was no longer about the governor and her heavy-handed tactics. It was now a debate about whether people should have shown up at the state capitol strapped with semi-automatic rifles. I think that that was counterproductive to what they were attempting to get across. And when you change your own story, not your story, but when you change your own focus from what the governor is doing to what you're doing, you've lost ground.
Well, Joe in Brooklyn, New York is mad too. He just watched you on Hannity. Must say was sorely disappointed. Not calling out the knuckleheads for carrying weapons at State House was gutless. I'm retired military. Most of my time when I met those clowns, I asked them who they served with. Overwhelming answer was, didn't have the honor to serve, or some other lame excuse. I'm a strong Second Amendment person, but there are times to carry a weapon that was surely not the time. God bless. Leave the guns home, period.
Well, this is an interesting one because Joe in Brooklyn heard something exactly opposite of what Galen heard. They both heard me say the same thing, and both of them got something completely different from it. I actually think that Joe in Brooklyn probably heard me right, but didn't understand me quite exactly where I was coming from. I hope I've cleared it up. But once again, we understand you can hear the same story. Two different people may see it two different ways. Well, from the Twitterverse, where you can follow me at Gov Mike Huckabee, an Atlantic article said there's too much misinformation on the internet, or perhaps too much information they don't agree with. So they would replace free speech with Chinese-like policing the internet so only experts would speak. Now, if China is an example of government that protects, gatekeeps propaganda might be a better description, then the crazies writing for Atlantic and hosting late-night comedy shows might be good candidates to carry out such censoring. And while we're talking about free speech, I'd like to give a salute to Student Senator Stephanie Martinez. She's a young conservative who supports border security and legal immigration. And because of this, a fellow student senator is calling for her impeachment. Perhaps that guy can one day get a job protecting free speech in China. But until then, we hope that Loyola Marymount University will support Stephanie's, and for that matter, all students' First Amendment rights. Now, call me old-fashioned, but I like the idea of providing for and protecting our citizens first. Now, before we close, I'd like to recall the thoughts of President Teddy Roosevelt on the purpose of immigration: to safely and legally bond us together as one. He said, and I quote, "There is no room in this country for hyphenated Americanism. The one absolutely certain way of bringing this nation to ruin, of preventing all possibility of its continuing to be a nation at all, would be to permit it to become a tangle of squabbling nationalities." End quote. You know, we live in the greatest nation in the world. As legal immigrants join our land, let's do everything we can to celebrate their arrival and to share with them the freedoms and the liberties that they worked honestly to attain. And until next time, this has been The Facts of the Matter.
Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, be sure to leave a like, then subscribe, and hit the notification bell below. Now, if you didn't like it, you ought to find a Ben Shapiro video to detox you with more facts.